right, everybody, welcome to Great River Arts. Please feel free to adjust yourselves and get comfortable. We are so grateful to have you all here joining us tonight for this fantastic event, an evening of stories. I'm going to welcome Trista to the stage, and she's going to introduce the event, and then we'll kind of get started, but please feel free to hang out. Thanks for coming.
Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Trista Mattis Castillo, and it's fun to be back in Little Falls. I'm a local girl and haven't been back on stage since high school about 25 years ago. So very nice to be back. I am with the Minnesota Humanities Center Veterans Voices program, and our program really aims to bridge the relationship gap between veterans and non-veterans in our community. So often, veterans are depicted on the big screen or in our media as either superheroes or social problems. And though we might fit into that category at some times in our lives, it's not where we spend most of our lives. And so our goal is to really share stories and connect with the human side of someone who has served in the military. So I would ask you to just close your eyes for a moment and imagine to yourself what you see when I say the word veteran. So there's an image in your mind when I say the word veteran. And I can assure you, when you open your eyes tonight and open your ears, you will see and hear stories from veterans that don't fit the mold that you just imagined. So with that, I will introduce our first veteran who is a storyteller. And our storytelling project was in partnership with the Moth Community Programs. They're out in New York. They came in and they taught our veterans how to tell stories. And so they're all personal stories, not necessarily military stories, but stories told by veterans. So therefore, they're veteran stories. And they worked together over a weekend earlier this spring, and now we've been in communities across the state of Minnesota telling their stories for a chance for community members to hear them and connect with them then after the performance. So you'll be able to just mingle and chat with our veterans as well afterwards. And in the spirit of the Moth, which performs all over the country and has a podcast, it's like spoken word, a pseudo competition, and a little bit of fun and brevity as well. So our first storyteller, Dejan Farrell, and Dejan is an Army veteran, a fantastic woman warrior. And when I asked Dejan if she was stranded on a desert island, what she would bring, she said she would bring a unicorn. So I'll let her explain. Dejan.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Dejan. And like Trista said, I love unicorns. And so I'm not your typical soldier, like the ones you see on the commercials with all the gear on, and they're all looking really like badass. I grew up with hippie parents. My father was a musician. My mother was a shamanic practitioner and a hippie and a dancer in Vegas. So she had a little identity thing going on there. But what was great about it is they made bets on whether or not I would make it through basic training or not. So that's pretty awesome. I went in super confident. And it wasn't because like I wasn't strong enough or they didn't think like that I was tough enough or anything like that. It was because I was too independent. My mother was like, don't listen to the man, don't let him get you down. You can be what you want to be, you can do what you want to do. And so I grew up with that, which was great. And then so I thought the Army, this is great, be all you can be. That's fucking fabulous. It's a perfect fit, right? So I decided the Army was where I would go. There was this part, though, that didn't quite fit, and it's when I found myself there with an M16 in my hand with the drill sergeant yelling at me to aim center mass. And I was like, that's the heart chakra. I won't, I'm done, you know? We couldn't even use water guns growing up. They were too violent. We couldn't wrestle because that was too aggressive. And Ninja Turtles, like, totally a no-go. So I realized, okay, this is not really a good fit, but I'm going to just keep on trucking through. So skip to a few weeks later, we're doing a field training exercise, and we're digging foxholes. And I remember thinking, this is kind of dumb. We don't even dig foxholes anymore. But, you know, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just do the Army thing. So I'm sitting there, and there's a tree root. And so I stopped digging because I'm not going to cut through this tree root. This is like a living thing. This is my friend, you know? So the drill sergeant comes over, and he's just, damn it, Private. We're like, what's the name of your frickin' recruiter? I want to know this guy's name because I want to call him up. And I was like, funny story. His name is Sergeant First Class Good Enough. Like, legit good enough. Yeah, so he's being all he can be too, right? we're awesome. And he's just like, damn it, you know. So he's like, you're going to sit in that foxhole for as long as I tell you to, until you're relieved, and you're going to guard the perimeter. So I sat in this foxhole. It was like this deep, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm guarding and everything. It was hours. I mean, probably 6 hours. I don't even know. And he thought that he made his point. Like, he was like, yeah, you're relieved now. How do you feel about that, you know? And I'm like, well, actually, I'm the one that made the point because the tree is still alive. My friend, you know, hello, Mr. Tree, you know. So that all happened, right? So skip to, it's like 8 years later, and I'm pregnant. I'm flying in a Black Hawk over Minnesota, and I was in charge of getting video of the floods. So I'm flying and I'm pregnant, and I get sick. I puke in my coffee mug. I put the lid on. I set it down, and I just keep working because I'm a fucking ninja. And I'm like, yeah, now I'm a unicorn ninja. Oh my God, this is amazing, you know. And I just remember thinking, like, yeah, I'm in the military, I'm in a ninja, but I'm still a unicorn because I'm like, I'm getting away with all the things, you know. I'm still being able to like save the trees, and I'm a unicorn ninja. So it's pretty cool. Then skip to, it's 13 years I've been in. 13 years. Nobody even thought I'd make it through basic training, right? I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm getting out. I decide. I know people, you guys are like, you were like the most badass unicorn ninja soldier there was. Why would you get out? Well, I had some experiences, and the VA at this point had labeled me with PTSD due to military sexual trauma. And I started to realize that that was kind of taking over my life, and that putting the uniform on was a little bit too much, and I just needed to get out. So I'm getting out, and as I'm taking that uniform off for the last time, which I thought I would be like excited, I thought I would burn that bitch. I was like, I'm done, right? No, it was the exact opposite. I was having this like identity crisis. I was like, I'm no longer Sergeant Farrell anymore. I'm no longer like have this team, this family surrounding me. I don't know where I stand. I go into Target and I'm just like a regular civilian now. It was kind of scary. And I remember talking to my son, and he's 6 now, and he was like, you know, talking to me about what he wanted to be when he grew up. And I'm like, you know, you can be anything you want to be. You can do whatever you want to do. Like, you're awesome just the way you are. And he's like, but I can't be nothing. I can't be nothing, Mom. And I was like, you're right. You can't be nothing. Like, we're all something. Okay, I'm going to be the most amazing civilian there is. All right, this is good. Okay, so I'm really, really excited. So I go and I color my hair purple, and I'm like, I can do what I want to do. And put nail polish on. I'm like, I'm a civilian. And I got a civilian boyfriend. And I realized, like, okay, I want to be like the women that, like, make the food and stuff, you know. So I'm gonna like make him a meal and like make him breakfast, you know, like the women do. I know that, not like in a sexist way, but you know, like I wanted to be a civilian and like make food and stuff. So I was like, okay, I make it breakfast, and I go to take it over to his house because he had an early wake up the next morning, and he's not there. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Like, he didn't really report that he was going anywhere else. So I'm gonna call his brother, and just for all of you gentlemen out there or ladies, if you date a woman soldier, we're fucking ninjas. Okay? I'm just letting you know. So I went into ninja mode, and I was like, okay, call his brother. So yeah, his daughter forgot something in the car, and I need to get it to his ex-wife's house so that like that she has it for school in the morning. And he's like, oh yeah, her address is blah 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 blah. And I'm like, thank you. So I go and get in my little car, and I'm like, all right. You know, at this point, I might as well have been driving a Humvee because I was just like on a mission. And I get there, and Sergeant Farrell kicks in. All of a sudden, I go around back, like, I know right where to go. I've never been to this house before. I go around back. I look in the back window, and there is his ex-wife standing butt-ass naked. So my heart dropped, but, you know, I couldn't let her see my fear. Like, this was the enemy. I had to go in strong, you know, so I pound on the door like the leader I was, you know, and I'm like, hi, I'm Justin's girlfriend, hi. And she came over, and her jaw just dropped like a cartoon character, you know, just like, and she opened the door, and she just started crying. And in that moment, I embraced her. So no shit, there I was, hugging my boyfriend's naked ex-wife. And I realized that no matter what, whether I was wearing the uniform or not, I still had those Army values, those things that I had learned during my 13 years of service. Just having the loyalty, the selfless service, the respect. When you deploy overseas, you see things. You see humans being treated in like the most unimaginable ways. You learn compassion and how to be a compassionate warrior. And so in that moment, I saw another human being struggling, and I realized that I can continue to be of service in my community in more ways than one, right? In that moment, it just happened to be with this naked chick. But, you know, it worked out. And it was just this powerful moment of just like, man, all of that wasn't for nothing, right? None of all, like that whole experience, everything that I experienced, all the PTSD and everything, it didn't happen to me, right? It happened for me. And it shaped who I was and still does to this day. So I'm just going to end by saying that no matter where you're at in this moment, you are right where you're meant to be. You are like the most perfect form of yourself right now in this very moment. And yes, you'll continue growing and expanding, but right now you are perfect. And every single one of you has the most magical, badass fucking unicorn ninja inside of you. So rock on.
Let's hear it for Unicorn Ninjas. Our next storyteller is going to bring us on a journey in another way. And Richard Leonard, who is another Army soldier who I actually had the pleasure of serving with many, many years ago as his platoon leader. And I'm so proud of the man he's become, the soldier he's become. And when I asked Richard, hey, Richard, what would you bring if you're stranded on a deserted island? He said, well, a pail so I can make sandcastles, duh. So without further ado, Richard Leonard.
Dejan is vertically challenged. All right. Am I a social problem or am I a superhero? What do you see? Do you see a man that will break into your car, maybe burglarize your home? Or do you see a man that at one time in his life, and still today in some respects, overcomes adversity to try to make this world a better place? Do I look like a man that can't pay my bills every month? And sometimes, just sometimes, have questionable thoughts or commit questionable actions. So just for a second, close your eyes. What does a veteran look like to you? Do they wear capes and leap tall buildings in single bound? Or do they sometimes wear old, tattered, beat-up clothes and ask you for money or food on the side of the road? Or is it something in between? I invite you to open your eyes now if you haven't closed. You see, it is my opinion that many people in our society view us veterans in two different ways, either superheroes or social problems. On February 16th, 2007, at 1:30 in the morning, Iraq time, I was posted up in the turret of my Humvee like so many nights before. We had headphones on, we had conversations between the three of us in the truck. And my job in that Humvee was to scan the road to find anything that would stop our movement. IEDs, enemy combatants on the side of the road, potholes, anything at all. The conversations that we had in our truck often were about, of course, women, video games, food, and many, many other topics that we will not disclose here this evening. There was also music playing, but at a very low volume so that we could still have our conversation. And then I remember a very, very bright light, and that's it. My next memory that night is waking up in a cloud of smoke and choking. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I thought that my back was broken. Our driver, Evan, who still to this day is one of my best friends in the world, was beating me relentlessly on the leg with a magazine of ammunition and screaming at me to get the hell out of the truck if I could move because it was on fire. I started to cry, and as they would tell you if they were here, well, Leonard, you were crying like a bitch. But through all the smoke and the tears, I managed to figure out that my back was not broken. My body armor was caught on the turret hook behind me, but it sure felt like my back was broken. I climbed myself up out of my turret, off from the hood from the roof of the truck down to the hood. I fell and then made my way down to the pavement. And I stood there, very dazed, very confused about what had just happened. And my truck commander at this point had opened up my body armor and started to pat my body to look for blood. And I remember being very, very upset and pissed off at him and screaming at him to knock it off. I'm going to get shot. They're watching, right? The enemy will look for a reason to take advantage of any situation. After that, I was then taken to the nearest base. I was evacuated to the nearest base to seek medical care. The worst part about that was that I was there for 2 days, and after they dropped me off there, and the doctor had came out and said that I would be okay, but I couldn't leave. I needed to be monitored. My brothers, my team continued north without me. What you may not realize is that a veteran who has been awarded a Purple Heart, such as I have, for what happened that night, signifies that at one point during my military service, I was wounded by the enemy. And some folks that come from our culture, the warrior culture, consider that the enemy marksmanship award. They got me. Was I not paying enough attention to the world around me, to my surroundings? Was I complacent? But not complacent enough to get killed. Just complacent enough to be wounded and knocked unconscious and tossed about a truck that later on I figured out went 3.5 miles while I was sleeping. You see, that turret was my assigned post. It was my job to make sure that the 32 trucks behind me that was filled with my brothers and one sister, by the way, and semi-trucks driven by civilians, it was my job to make sure that we didn't hit any IEDs, to make sure that they stayed safe. Thankfully, I have all of my fingers and I have all of my toes and I have all 4 limbs. I don't have any very visible physical wounds from combat. But it's the invisible wounds that sometimes are the beast. And I often sometimes feel like I would trade those invisible wounds for visible ones. Does any of that make me a hero? I don't think so. I think that in some respects that makes me a man, a soldier that at one point wrote a check for the cost up into my life if needed. And if given the chance, I'd write that fucking check all over again. So I ask you again, what do you see? I hope by now it's not a hero. I hope by now it's not a social problem. I hope by now that you just see a man that did a job. Thank you.
One more time for Richard. Proud of the man he is. Our next storyteller, Deanna Griffin, served in the Army for 25 years. That in itself is something to cheer about. It's a long time, especially as a woman in the military, to serve 25 years. But Deanna, when I asked her, what would you bring if you're stranded on a deserted island? And she said, a tall, dark, handsome man. So let's hear it for Deanna.
Good evening, everyone. Trista was actually my lieutenant at the Bloomington Army National Guard, so I've known her for a very long time. I've been in the Guard, like she said, 25 years, but I always wanted to be a forest ranger. I grew up in South Dakota, and I used to hike and bike and do all the kinds of things. My dad was a World War II veteran, and of course, he got the Purple Heart at the Battle of the Bulge in December 25th, 1944, Christmas Day. And so I've known that there was part of me all my life that's been part of the VA system or the military system. And but I went off to technical college and I studied accounting. And I ended up working in a cubicle farm. But that wasn't where I really wanted to be. I wanted to be somewhere else. And I had a couple kids and I was married, but I met somebody who we were out dancing one night and he was a tall, dark, handsome man, and he made my body sizzle. Do you know what I mean? That passion was there that I've never had before ever in my life. It just made me feel so good. So I had that affair, and unfortunately it ended my marriage. And then one day he told me, well, why don't you come and join the Guards? But he would not marry me. He goes, join the Guards. So I did. So at the age of 30, I joined the Guards. And I went to basic training at the age of 31. And they called me Grandma Griffin. All the drill sergeants called me Grandma Griffin. What? And I was fairly tall compared to some of them. It was hard for me to change my step and do things. And I had a hard time doing sit-ups. And the drill sergeant says, why can't you do sit-ups, Griffin? I said, if you had two babies too, you would never be able to do sit-ups, would you, drill sergeant? So that was really hard for me. And just being the older woman, and a lot changed, and I knew that I needed some change in my life, and I went back to college, to Metro State University in St. Paul, and studied writing. And 9/11 happened, and I went off to Kosovo in 2004, and spent a year there. And it was an interesting year. It was packed with a lot of excitement, like the Albanians decided to riot on St. Patty's Day of all days, and because supposedly a Serbian man's dog hit some kids in the river or something like that. We never knew the reason, but we knew that they wanted to riot so they could get their independence from the Serbians. But it was a scary time because they were burning the buildings, they were burning churches. We couldn't go off our base. We had to stay on there all the time. Couldn't go nowhere at all. And I was the postal sergeant, and people came up to me, well, when are we going to get our mail? I said, I don't know when we'll get our mail. We'll get it when we get it. But it just made everybody really anxious. You know, how long is this going to last? We got to eat MREs, meals ready to eat forever, you know. So our base was pretty good, and we got to, finally, the Serbians and Kosovars settled their disagreements, and we got to go off base, and I spent a year there. But I was in an accident there as well. It was almost a head-on collision where, the funny thing is, usually Muslim women in those countries do not drive. But it was 3 women that were involved in this accident. One woman in Mercedes pushed another woman into my lane, and I almost hit them head on. It was a really scary thing for me, and I still have trouble driving to this day. I hold that steering wheel as tight as can be. I managed to get off the shoulder and get away from the head on, but it still makes me anxious to this day. And then, I was supposed to go to Iraq after I came home from Kosovo, but I had already been in Kosovo a year, and I knew my cubicle farm work would like me doing that. So I told them no, I couldn't go to that one. But I did go to Qatar in 2007 and 2008. I took service members out golfing and out on the Persian Gulf where they'd ride jet skis and smack into each other, and then I'd have to take them to the hospital, unfortunately. But, you know, they were getting it out of the system, and we could drink on our base, and so they would, you know, bribe people to get more drink tickets just so we could have one more drink. So after I got back in 2008, I was a little messed up, you could say. You know, it's hard being away from home 2 years on a deployments. And I got back home, and I knew I needed more from my life instead of that cubicle farm of accounting that I worked in. And I went back to Metro State, and I got my psychology degree now. And hopefully I can be a veterans advocate so I can help other service members find a way to get through these crazy transitions. And another worst thing was I was going through menopause at my deployment, so I had those crazy, you know, hot flashes all the time. So, but I'm doing much better today. I'm trying to get a job at the VA Medical Center in Minneapolis, and I'm a volunteer there right now, and I just want to help other veterans get through what I had to go through. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deanna. I was just pointed out to me that there's a little bit of difference between military branches. You might have heard there's 5 military branches, right? Navy, Marine Corps, Army, and Coast Guard. But then there's also a difference between active duty and reserve or National Guard. So we've heard from a couple National Guard soldiers, and Paul Riedner, who's going to come up next, was an active duty Army diver. So imagine scuba diver. Yes, they dive in the Army, and the Army also has boats. Little known fact, the Army actually has more boats than the Navy, and the Navy has more airplanes than the Air Force. So if that just blows your mind, those are facts. So Paul served in the active duty Army side, and just hanging out with these National Guard veterans, he's like, you all don't make any sense to me. So if you're confused by military service, we are as well. I personally, I call myself a translator. I served in 3 different branches of the service. I served in the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Army National Guard. So that makes me bilingual. And so I can hang out with this group and kind of translate. But Paul is up next. And Paul served, as I said, in the active duty Army force as a diver. And when I asked him, you know, thinking a diver, he probably knows what to bring on a deserted island. And Paul said he would just bring his guitar. So up next, Paul Riedner.
Trista told me that she was going to tell a story about her husband Hector and what happened when she showed up from active duty into the National Guard. So later, ask Trista about that story. So I'm sleeping on the couch. My wife told me, you snore. You go sleep on the couch, because she started contractions. She was pregnant, and we weren't sure how long it was going to be. So she's like, "You're going to stay in the living room tonight." So she wakes me up. It's 1:30 in the morning, and she's like, "It's happening for real. Contractions are now productive. For those of you who have kids, there's a terminology involved with this process. So now my job starts. So I went and grabbed my phone. And I started timing. All right, start contraction, stop contraction. Now what? Well, pretty soon, I had no freaking clue if we should go to the hospital or not. So I called the midwife. She's like, "Get in the car." All right, cool. So we get in the car. We start driving towards the birth center. We get like 8 blocks, and my wife's like, "Honey, my water's just broke. Can you help me pull my pants down?" Well, yeah. So I help her pull her pants down. So now she's sitting on her knees because this is going to be our 3rd child, and she doesn't want to sit on her butt like y'all are because it's really uncomfortable when you're trying to birth a child, apparently. So I tilted the seat down so she could put her arms up, and she's on her knees, and I help her get the pants down, and I keep driving. That's my job. And we get like 2 blocks later, and she's like, "Paul, this baby's coming now." And I don't know if I actually responded. I just drove faster. And no, red lights didn't mean much. And it's 4:30 in the morning in Minneapolis, and the streets are open. So it's okay. I don't really think this is going to happen in the car, so let's get there. Got like 10 blocks left. But then I look over and I see my child's head is completely out and tilted towards me, actually looking at me. I mean, her eyes weren't open. Come on. Her eyes aren't open. Her eyes are closed, but her face is blue. And I pull the car over by Walgreens, and I put it in park, and I turn on the lights, and it gets really still. And I look over, and the umbilical cord is wrapped around her neck. If not for the umbilical cord, I think she probably would have been on the floor of the car because she was coming quick. But now I'm in this position. I sort of... And when I look back and remember this moment and what do I do, it's like everything slowed way down. It's sort of a meditative state. It's sort of a zone when you can access everything. All my memories came to life. My training in the Army as a deep sea diver was informing what I was doing. The birth of my first daughter, my second child, Maya, when she was born, she had the umbilical cord wrapped around her neck twice. And I watched the midwife work through this problem. Her first reaction was, "Oh shit," which doesn't, inspire a lot of confidence as a father, during this thing. But I watched her go through this process, and our daughter was healthy. And so I helped. I was in this sort of state of mind where you're not thinking, you're just doing. And I figured out how to get the umbilical cord just enough so I could get it around her head. And then her shoulders kind of popped out. And I turned to my wife and I just said, just give one push. And she gave a push, and I caught my daughter in my hands. And it was like there was no one else in the whole world at that moment. It was me and my wife, no distractions and nothing else. And a new baby girl, but it wasn't done. Like, we didn't know if she was okay. And I helped my wife get turned around in her chair. And we put her on my wife's chest. And I just told my wife, we just stroke her and talk to her. And so my wife said, "Nell Esther, just give us a cry." And she stroked her and patted her. And my wife was calm this whole time. And it was a temple in that car at that moment. And then out of nowhere, baby girl just let out this huge cry, healthy. And then I was like, all right, everything's good. This baby's good. And I just fucking drove faster than I've ever drove in my entire life through the city to the birth center, and arrived. It's surreal with our baby. And I went up the stairs to get the midwife to open the doors. And she knew something was up because she left her house the same time that we left ours. And she came out and I said, "Hey, come on down. I want to introduce you to our new friend, Nell Esther." And she just looked at me, "What?" And then stumbled like, "Wait, what, when?" And I just said, "Hey, those are all very good questions. Very good questions." But baby girl was coming out, and we had to make do. And she's here now. Thank you.
Okay, you know what? Kathleen is coming next, and she's tall too, so we'll just leave it. So up next is Kathleen Culhane, and Kathleen, I think, will probably blow your mind on veteran stories, but she has a love in common, which many veterans have, and that is beer. So she's going to tell you a little bit about beer. But when I asked Kathleen what she would bring on a deserted island, she very appropriately said, a lavender Leatherman. So here's Kathleen.
Hi. I did a little sleuthing today, and I determined that I was last here 32 years ago this summer when I was at Camp Ripley for a single overnight. Most of it was an alcoholic haze. I don't remember a lot of details, but I did determine that the canteen was where I drank my first way too many tequila sunrises. As you may know, I'm probably not in exactly the body I was then. Matter of fact, when I perform this story, I usually wear a shirt that says, "Transgender veteran, I fought for your right to hate me." But that is not, in fact, why I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to talk about Ireland and beer. In the summer of 2014, my wife and I actually got to go out of the country for the first time, where we went to Ireland for about 2 weeks. Ostensibly, our purpose while we were there was for her to sing with her chorus in Dublin, and then we were to have a bus tour, vacation for about a week and a half. She finished her singing, we did our bus tour, and this particular night that I'm going to tell you about, we had stopped and stayed overnight in Killarney, which, if any of you know, is in the far southwest in their Lake District, and it's an absolutely gorgeous town. But in most places in Ireland, everything's thousands of years old, or at least it seems that way. The buildings are very close together. I woke up this morning in Killarney, and overnight I'd received an email from the city of St. Paul. At the same time we were in Ireland, I was also getting ready to open a business, and I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm a chemist. I'm opening a brewery at this time, and I got this email from the city that said, "Congratulations, new business owner. We're so ready to grant you your license, and this is what you have to do. This is the rough timeline, and you can be open by August." And this was June. And I'm like, oh, and the stomach fell out. Because I didn't even have a physical location found yet. And I was just crushed, mortified, terrified, depressed, anxious, all those words. And when I get that way, the lights get dim, the walls close in. Now, like I said, buildings close together in Killarney, you open the shades on this bed and breakfast, you see a brick wall. And I'm in such a funk. We get downstairs. I'm sure I ate breakfast. I have no idea what. And we get on our bus for the tour of the day. The tour of the day was to be the Dingle Peninsula, which, if you ever get a chance to, you really should go. It's gorgeous. Along the way, we were going to stop at a beach called Inch Beach. Now, I don't know why they call it Inch, because it's at least a mile long, straight as an arrow, and it's directly across a sound that faces out towards the Atlantic Ocean. I made a decision during the bus ride that I was going to get off the bus, I was going to use my military time management skills, and I was going to set a timer for half the amount of time I had. I was going to walk out, I was going to turn, and I was going to walk back, because I knew that I would finish at exactly the right place at exactly the right time. So I did. All of my friends, my family were splashing in the waves. It was cold as hell. I'm barefoot, and I'm walking in the surf, and I'm walking away. And as I walk, the light, again, still seems fairly dim. I see bits of broken dead seaweed, broken shells. I don't see anything really alive. And I continue in my funk. I get to the end, the timer goes off, I start my turn, and as I continue my turn, something shifts within me. I complete my turn. In the distance I see life and light and my friends and my family. As I walk back, the light comes back. I see seagulls. I see life around me, and I'm going back towards it. I'm re-entering the world because I chose to. I get back to the bus. Our bus driver, about this tall, ears like this, 85 years of ease a day. His brogue is so thick, you could cut it with a chainsaw. I have another part of that story, but I think it's too long. I'm going to tell it anyway. When I first met him earlier in the week, I was wearing a shirt that said, "Is Farlam Kalini." Does anybody here speak Irish? What? It means I like girls. And Paddy sees this shirt, and he says, "Oh, you're one of those." And I said, without even batting an eye, I said, "Oh, Paddy, but in my case, it needs to say August Boychely. And boys." Come on, we were there for a queer singing convention. Duh. Anyway, I get on the bus, and Paddy says, "You know, Kathleen, you're all about the beer, see? There's this lovely brewery in Dingle. We'll get there early. There won't be any tourists around. You get off the bus at the waterfront. You walk up Spa Road. You go to the brewery before any of the tourists get there. You'll probably have the place to yourself. You might even get to talk to the brewer." I said, "Paddy, that's a wonderful idea. I'm going to do exactly that." I get off the bus. It's, by this point, a very beautiful sunny morning. I walk up Spa Road, which is a mill race. So there's a chuckling stream running down beside me as I walk up to it. It is beautiful. I can't describe enough how beautiful it really was. And it's an old town. I get there, sure enough, the brewer is mucking out his mash tun. He has just finished brewing for the morning, and I got him to myself for 45 minutes. Now, I don't know about you, but when I run into a lovely young Irish man, I really only need to hear him talk. I don't care what he says. Oh, talk to me some more like that, huh, laddie. Anyway, I actually did get some useful information out of him, but oh my God, was he cute. I wish I could remember his name. I finish talking to him. I go to their tap room. I have the only beer they make, Tom Crean's Irish Lager. It was delicious and delightful. I walk back down Spa Road. About this time, it's getting to be about lunchtime, and the bus is going to come back through town. I found a pub right at the wharf that serves food that probably just walked off the boat. I have another Tom Crean's, and as I'm sitting down, my wife rejoins me, and we have a lovely dinner. Now, the point to this whole story is this. In the space of about 60 minutes, I was able to change what was one of the worst days I'd had in a very long time to one of the best. You have the power within you to change how you perceive and move in the world. It is up to you.
Excellent. I hope that you are learning tonight the differences. The differences between some of the stories that you might have seen in the movies or on television and hearing firsthand the experiences of veterans and their stories as humans. We have heard themes of transformation and resiliency, the call to duty, about our families and service. And those are kind of the themes that our veterans have identified over and over and over that feel like it's really representative of themselves. And so to follow that theme of family and a love story, we have Angie Vatika, who is an Army veteran, a warrior who served in Korea and in the United States on helicopters. Angie Vatika. And when I asked her what she would bring on a deserted island, she said that she would bring, no, I'm forgetting. I don't remember what she said. We'll let Angie tell you. All right, Angie Vatika.
It was a warm, sunny day. It was a perfect day to be at the Minnesota Zoo. It was July 2011, and I was hanging out with my new friend who happened to be my martial arts instructor. We started hanging out after I quit martial arts because I wanted to go to school and focus on that. And I also had a crush on him since Christmas. So it was really hard to be around him because he just was like playing it cool. You know, he had gotten in trouble before for dating a subordinate, so I didn't want to push that button. So we're at the zoo and we're looking at animals, and I realize, you know, we have so much in common. We like to do so many things, and animals and nature and beauty. It's just one of those things we share. You know, I find him really funny and charming, and he's good with kids, and, you know, he's just a terrific guy. He's a great friend, and, you know, it's just so cool to hang out with him. I was so hot for teacher. You know, I was flip-flopping all summer, and I tried to hate him and ignore him and try to put him on that part out of my mind and realize, you know, friendship's the most important. But heck, you know, it's just something that I felt deep down inside and wouldn't let go. Well, I was getting really tired of this back and forth nonsense. You know, I'd picture him, you know, hugging me. He's like the perfect height, and you know, his big full lips on mine, and I even dedicated a song to him called E.T. by Katy Perry. Kiss me, kick. All right, you don't want to hear that. But yeah, so I had all these fantasies about him while I was trying to play it cool, but I was really getting sick of it, you know. I didn't know how to like broach the subject because I had a lot of terrible experiences with men in the past. See, I never had been in a good relationship, or even a relationship for that matter. Never had a boyfriend in high school or college. Heck, I was in the Army for 8 years and thought I'd definitely find one in that sea of men. But nope, nada. I didn't want to admit I was one of those looking to get married, and that's why I went in. But anyways, instead, I actually had a really bad childhood. And my great-grandpa molested me for years. My great-uncle molested me for years. Some strangers, a lot of family friends, up until I was like 12. And I ended up running away from that and joining the Army at 17. And then the next thing I know, instead of getting away from it, I get violently raped by a sergeant above me, and also other sexual assaults. And of course, I report them, and it all got swept under the rug, and they would come at me about it. And so, that messed me up even more. So now I have this crazy notions about men and sex and relationships. I was scared of men. I was scared of all of it. And I, hit the bottle for a number of years, or the crack pipe, and on and off for like 10 years. I racked up a lot of, charges and in and out of treatments and gaining and losing everything in my life. All I cared about was the bottle or the pipe and not myself. And then I finally got sober in 2009, right? And here I got myself together. I got my act together. But I still knew nothing about love. So fast forward back to 2011. I'm walking with him, and I'm sick of playing it cool, man. I'm just like, all right, I gotta talk to him today. This is it. This is the day. If I don't try, I don't know what's gonna happen. But of course, I was so insecure, and I felt like I was damaged goods, and how can anybody want somebody like me? Nobody ever wants me. I always like them, but they never like me. They just treat me like meat and just want a piece of me. Where's the love part? I don't know. So I told him, I'm really tired. I just want to go. And as we're walking down out the path, I just blurted out, okay, just in front of everybody, I'm like, if you don't start dating me or we don't start like trying, I can't hang out with you anymore because I really, 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 really like you, and I just can't take it. And I was just like, and he was like, what? He's like, I gotta take a second and sit down. So he sits there, and it felt like an eternity. It felt like we were in the middle of nowhere, and I was just, my heart's pounding, and I just felt stunned and like, did I do the wrong thing? Here, this is it, and I'm just gonna go home and be depressed, and here we go again. I'm just gonna know all the bad about men and nothing about the good. And he's, sighing and looking down, and he turns to me and he goes, I really value our friendship. That's what's most important to me. And, I don't know what else to say except, yes, let's give it a try. Yes! What do you mean, yes? Never in my whole life did anyone say that before. So I'm like, I didn't know what to do, so I just leaned over and kissed him. Back in my mind, I was like, well, now we have to have sex and everything because that's what he really wants, and, I might get love later. But instead, we went back to my apartment and hung out and got to know each other, and it was really a lot of fun. We just fast forward through our relationship. He taught me to love before making love. He made me feel valued, and he made sure that our friendship was solid before we went any further. He's the best, most charming, nice, funny, blah, blah, blah kind of man that I could ever want. And no, not all the good ones are taken. We've been together 5 years and happily married for 3. Well, all of it's happy. I'm a stepmom to his 2 adorable sons, and we own a taekwondo school together now. So if you don't take risks, people, you don't try, you never know if you're going to get what you deserve. And yes, I'd take him with me.
That's what it was on the deserted island. Thank you, Angie. Our next and final storyteller tonight is a dear friend, Jay Mode, our one and only Air Force veteran here tonight. So he's representing the blue. And Jay is a special treat to you all because Jay is also a playwright and is performing an original play that is by far the most profound play I've personally seen in Bloomington in November. It's called Outside Paducah, The Wars at Home. I highly recommend if you're interested in really amazing play, you can come see Jay. But when I asked Jay what he would bring when he was stranded on a deserted island, he said, I had to write this down, he said, the Red Book of Westmarch. So there's only a couple nerds in the room that understand what that is. Sorry. Something about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So that's Jay.
Lights are bright. All right, so it's Judy Garland's fault. Really. That's exactly why I became an Air Force pilot, why I'm here right now. So see, there I was, this scrawny, straight, 7-year-old boy sitting next to my father watching The Wizard of Oz. And Judy Garland sings. And it's beautiful. And Oz is beautiful. And Glinda is beautiful. But more than anything, musicals are beautiful. And back then, there wasn't much of anything that was beautiful in my life. You see, I grew up in this dying steel town in southern Illinois, and people were struggling pretty bad. A lot of alcohol and drug addiction, physical and mental abuse, you know, that burning sulfur smell in the air from what was left of the steel mill. But musicals, they were beautiful. I loved them. Gene Kelly, right? Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, Mickey Rooney. Who did not love musicals? I know some people who didn't like musicals. The kids in my neighborhood, because I was walking down the street one day singing 76 trombones led the big parade. And I'm like, what is that? A rock hits me in the back of the head. I'm getting my ass kicked. It takes just once or twice of that. Getting called a fag. Before you box that up, right? You learn pretty fast in a steel town that masculinity is pretty much all you have. But my old man loved musicals. And we would watch them together. And it was this amazing thing. But he could get away with it because he was this badass. Big arms, you know, Carpenter, the strong guy. You know, the dad who could kick every other dad's ass in town. Yeah, that was him. But the reality is, he was a combat veteran from Vietnam. And nobody questioned his masculinity. So, I got the message. So, football, baseball, wrestling, I'm doing it all. Lifting weights, but of course I'm this closet musical fan, right? So, I get home on Friday nights. I'm not going out, and I'm getting that TV guide. Oh yeah! Circling all the musicals. All weekend long, baby. It's a freaking orgy. And it's beautiful. So here's the thing. I see Camelot. I'm like, that's amazing. I'm like, holy fucking Excalibur. I want to be a knight. I'm like, the round table. I mean, President Reagan, shining city on the hill, right? Evil empire of Russia. I'm like, I could go to the Air Force Academy and be a pilot. Yeah. My dad says, that's cool. I could joust in the sky. No shit. And then I see the movie musical Hair. Now, if you don't know if you've ever seen that movie musical, but it's amazing. And there's a scene at the end where all of these troops are walking into the back of the C-130. And they're singing, Let the Sun Shine In. And it's a beautiful moment. And my dad's watching it with me, and he's like, hey, that was a plane I jumped out of in Vietnam. I'm like, really? Of course, I had no idea that 10 years later, I would be flying that exact airplane. Right? So it was pretty cool. So yeah, decided to go to the Air Force Academy. So fast forward to my sophomore year, right there at the Air Force Academy, and it fucking sucks. It really, really sucks. I mean, I'm depressed, considering leaving, drinking a lot, lifting weights all the time, hanging out in the library, very lonely, going through the entire collection of Broadway musicals by myself, listening to every single one of them. And it's kind of pathetic, really. But then I came across this album, Judy Garland live in Carnegie Hall. And I sat down, I put my headphones on, and I listened to it. And I swear it was like being in New York. And I swear she was singing to me. And there was this girl I'd been dating, and I'm like, you know, I'm going to break the news. So I go to her, all right. And I tell her, I like musicals. She's like, what? I'm like, I like musicals. And she's like, oh, that's cool. I go, no, I really like musicals. Really, really like musicals. And I'm not sure it's good for me. And she's like, all right, I'm going to take you to see one. I'm like, all right. Drags me downtown Colorado Springs at midnight. And I'm like, midnight? Downtown Colorado? What kind of musical showing at midnight? You know, and I'm in my cadet uniform, basically, which is jeans, white tennis shoes, and a blue polo. And everybody else is in leather jackets, drag, high heels. And I'm looking around going, I don't want to see this. And she's like, oh, you got to see this. I'm like, no, I don't want to see this. So she grabs me by the hand, kisses me, and drags me inside. And then the music starts, right? And it's freaking amazing. People are throwing rice and toast and singing. And next thing you know, I'm dancing around, taking my shirt off, and it's insanity, and it's amazing. So the next month when our squadron has its lip sync contest, guess who signed up? So everybody's got their wigs on because, it's the hair band era. And they're doing like, oh yeah, Van Halen, oh, we're Journey, and I'm wearing a wig too. And I've got my robe on, so once that stage is clear and it's my turn, I step on stage and boom, I rip that thing off and full drag, baby. I'm just a sweet transvestite from Transylvania. I can't sing for shit. And everybody's like, Cat was pretty much out of the bag at that point. No going back. So the next morning I got that knock on the door in my dorm by my squadron commander, and he's like, Jay, heard about your performance last night. It was special. I think you might be sending the wrong impression. So I got the message. So I said, okay. So I decided to join the rugby team with all the other misfits at the academy. But we were good. We were a lot of crazy misfits. Top 4 in the nation 3 years in a row. I stiff-armed my way to being MVP my senior year. We were kicking ass. We were good. Yeah. So when I was in a mall about a week before graduation, I see this picture, this lithograph of Judy Garland's face. It's that one from A Star Is Born, and I'm probably the only person that ever seen A Star Is Born, but it's just this gorgeous picture of her face with this short black hair, and it's beautiful, and I buy it, and I put it on my wall, and I'm like just waiting for somebody to say something. Come on. Bring it! Nobody brought it. So after graduation, I decided, you know what? I'm going to fly to New York City. And I did. And I saw Les Miserables and Phantom of the Opera, original cast. Thank you very much. But it was so amazing that I stayed like, an extra week. Seeing all kinds of other shows, Romance, Into the Woods, and La Cage aux Folles. Now, if you haven't seen La Cage aux Folles, it's a very special magic show. There's all these men dancing around in full drag, singing, and it's amazing. And there's this song. It's this very beautiful song. And it goes like this. I am what I am. I am my own special creation. Yeah, I got it. And it was beautiful. Told you it was Judy's fault. Thanks.
Again, you can see Jay performing a one-man show outside Paducah in Bloomington late in November. So if you want information, we'll share that as well. Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us tonight and supporting the Veterans' Voices. I hope you learned something, you saw something different, you have a different view of who and what veterans are and what matters to us most. We're on tour across the state of Minnesota, so we're likely to be in another community near you. We hope you join us. And please take a moment to have a conversation with our storytellers and get to know them and hear their stories in another way. Thank you again for coming.